the house my husband left behind. I never thought the house I spent 40 years building a life in would become the place where my own son would try to take everything away from me. My name is Linda Carter, and before that painful chapter of my life began, I was simply a wife, a mother, and a woman who believed family was the one thing that would always remain. My husband Michael and I were married for 42 years. 42 years. When people hear that number, they often think about time. But to me, it wasn't just time. It was thousands of ordinary moments that became memories. It was the first morning we drank coffee together as a married couple. It was the night we brought our newborn son Jason home. It was the holidays we spent laughing around the dinner table. It was the quiet evenings when we sat on the porch and watched the world pass by. Our house was never just a building. It was where our entire story happened. Michael and I bought that house when we were young. We didn't have much money back then. The kitchen was old. The floors needed repairs. The backyard was nothing special. But we saw something other people didn't. We saw a future. Every room represented something we built together. The small bedroom upstairs where Jason slept as a child. The hallway where I watched him take his first steps. The living room where Michael taught him how to play chess. Every corner held a piece of our family. And for decades, I believed that house would always be our safe place. A place where family could return. But life doesn't always follow the story we imagine. 3 months before everything changed, my husband Michael received the news that would change our lives forever. He was sick. At first, we believed we had time. We told ourselves, we'll get through this. We've survived difficult things before. And we had. We survived financial struggles. We survived raising a child. We survived the ups and downs of life. I thought we would survive this too. But some battles are different. Some battles slowly take away the person you love while leaving you standing there, unable to stop it. The last few months with Michael were both the hardest and most precious months of my life. I stayed by his side every day. I held his hand. I listened to his stories. I reminded him of all the good years we had shared. And even when he became weaker, he still worried about me. One night, while we were sitting in our bedroom, Michael looked around the room and smiled. He said, "Linda, promise me you'll be okay." I remember shaking my head. I said, "Don't talk like that. You're going to be here." But Michael just smiled. Because sometimes, the person leaving knows the truth before the person staying behind is ready to accept it. A few weeks later, Michael passed away in the same house we had built together. The house became quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in 42 years, I woke up and there was no one beside me. No morning conversations. No familiar voice calling my name. Just silence. After the funeral, I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. Because grief wasn't the only thing waiting for me. My son Jason came home for the funeral. At first, he seemed like the son I remembered. He hugged me. He told me, "Mom, I'm here for you." Those words meant everything to me. After losing my husband, I needed to believe I still had family. I needed to believe Jason and I would become closer. For a few days, he helped around the house. He organized some things. He talked about practical matters. I thought maybe this tragedy had reminded him how important family was. I thought maybe losing his father changed him, but I didn't realize. Jason wasn't looking at the house the way I was. I saw memories. He saw something else. A few days after we buried Michael, Jason sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where he had eaten breakfast every morning as a child. He placed some papers in front of him. I looked at him. "Jason, what are these?" He took a deep breath. "Mom, We need to talk about the house. Something about his voice felt different. It wasn't the voice of a son checking on his mother. It sounded like someone preparing for a business conversation. And at that moment, I felt something I couldn't explain. A feeling that something was about to change forever. I didn't know it yet. But the home my husband and I spent our entire lives building was about to become the reason my own son would reveal who he truly was. The son who changed after his father's funeral. After Michael's funeral, I thought Jason would be the person who helped me survive the hardest days of my life. And he was my son. I spent decades believing that no matter how old our children became, they would always remember the people who raised them. Never expected Jason to be perfect. Never expected him to give up his own life for me. I only wanted one thing, to know that I still mattered. For the first few days after the funeral, Jason acted like he cared. He brought me coffee in the morning. He asked if I needed anything. He told me not to worry. Mom, you shouldn't be dealing with everything alone. Those words comforted me. I thought, maybe Michael was right. Before he passed away, Michael always told me, Jason loves you. He just doesn't always know how to show it. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But slowly, I began noticing small changes. Jason stopped asking how I was feeling. Instead, he started asking questions about things around the house. Where are Dad's financial papers? Did Dad have any other accounts? Do you know how much the house is worth now? At first, I didn't think much of, and then I told myself he was just trying to help. After all, someone had to handle practical things after Michael's death, but then the questions became more frequent. One afternoon, I found Jason looking through the filing cabinet in Michael's office. I stood in the doorway. Jason? He turned around quickly. Oh, Mom, I was just organizing Dad's documents. I smiled. Your father was very organized. He always kept everything in order. Jason nodded. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it was strange, but because of the way he said it, like he wasn't remembering his father, like he was searching for something. A few days later, Jason brought up the house again. Mom, have you thought about moving somewhere smaller? I looked at him. Moving? He nodded. You're alone now. This place is a lot to take care of. I knew he was right about one thing. The house was large. There were rooms I didn't use anymore. The yard was more work than it used to be. But this wasn't just a house. It was the last place where Michael and I built our life together. I wasn't ready to let go. I don't think I'm ready for that. Yet, Jason sighed. Mom, I'm just trying to be realistic. Realistic. That word bothered me, because it sounded less like concern and more like a decision he had already made. That night, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Michael and me on our wedding day. Jason as a little boy, our family. Vacations, Christmas mornings. I wondered, when did my son stop seeing this place as our home? The next week, Jason came back with more papers. This time, they weren't just documents. They were forms. Mom, these will make things easier. I looked down. They were documents related to managing my affairs. I looked at him. Why would I need this? He smiled. Because you're going through a lot, right? Now, I'm just trying to protect you. Protect me. Another word that sounded kind, but somehow felt wrong. Because protection should make you feel safe, not powerless, and I didn't sign anything. Jason's expression changed slightly. Not anger, not yet, but disappointment. Like I had failed to do what he expected. That was the first moment I truly felt it. My son wasn't asking. He was waiting for me to agree. And there was a difference. A few days later, I overheard Jason on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen. I was walking past the hallway when I heard his voice. Yes, I understand. A pause. No, she hasn't signed yet. My heart stopped. Signed what? I quietly stepped away, before he noticed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. For the first time since Michael's death, I felt something stronger than grief. I felt suspicion. And deep inside, I started wondering if my son had come home because he missed his father, or because he wanted what his father left behind. The words that changed the way I saw my son. I spent the next few days trying to convince myself that I was overthinking everything. Told myself, Jason is just worried. He's dealing with losing. His father too. Maybe I'm seeing things because I'm grieving. A mother wants to believe the best about her child, even when the truth is standing right in front of her. But then came the moment when I could no longer make excuses. It happened in the kitchen, the same kitchen where Jason used to sit as a child, swinging his legs under the table while waiting for dinner. He walked in carrying another stack of papers. Already knew what they were. More documents. More decisions someone else wanted to make for me. Jason placed them on the table. Mom, we really need to finish this. I looked at him. Finish what? He sighed. The paperwork. What paperwork, Jason? His expression changed, like he was surprised I was still asking questions. Mom, the house, the accounts, everything Dad left behind. I stared at him. Everything your father left behind? I repeated those words slowly, because somehow they didn't sound like they came from my son. They sounded like they came from someone waiting for an inheritance. Jason, your father just died. I know. Then why are we already talking about taking control of everything? His face became tense. Taking control? He laughed quietly. Mom, that's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing? There was a long silence. Then he said something I never expected to hear. Someone has to be responsible now. I looked at him. Are you saying I'm not? He looked away. That's not what I mean. But it was. Sometimes people reveal the truth without saying the exact words. I spent my entire life taking care of my family. I raised Jason, I supported Michael, I kept our home running. And suddenly, my own son was looking at me like I was incapable, like I was a problem he needed to manage. I pushed the papers back toward him. I'm not signing anything today. Jason's jaw tightened. Mom, you're making this harder than it needs to. Those words hurt, not because he was frustrated, because they showed how he saw me. A complication. An obstacle, not his mother. That evening, I received a call from Michael's old attorney. I had almost forgotten about him. His name was Robert Wilson. He had worked with Michael for many years. He asked how I was doing. We talked about Michael, about the funeral, about the difficult days ahead. Then his voice became serious. Linda, there is something we need to discuss. I sat up. What is it? Your husband left instructions that I should only speak with you after his passing. My heart started beating faster. Instructions? Yes, Robert paused. Michael, wanted to make sure you understood everything he arranged before. Anyone else became involved? Anyone else? Those words stayed with me. Because suddenly, I wondered if Michael had known something I didn't. Before I could ask more, Jason walked into the room. I quickly ended the call. Who was that? Jason asked. Just someone. Helping with your father's affairs. He watched me. Carefully. Too carefully. And in that moment, I realized something where son wasn't just asking questions. He was watching. Me, waiting, trying to find out what I knew. Later that night, I opened Michael's old desk. I searched through the drawers, behind some old documents, found a small envelope with my name written on it. Linda. My hands started shaking, because I knew my husband. Michael never did anything without a reason. I opened the envelope. Inside was a note. Only one sentence was written. Linda, if anyone tries to make you feel like you have nothing, remember the truth I protected for you. Read that sentence again, and again. My heart was racing, because, for the first time, I understood. Michael had prepared for something, and my son had no idea what was waiting for him. The secret my husband protected for me, I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about the note Michael left behind. If anyone tries to make you feel like you have nothing, remember the truth I protected for you. Those words felt impossible to ignore. My husband knew me better than anyone. He knew I wasn't someone who cared about money. He knew I never wanted a luxurious life. For 42 years, I built a life around family, around love, around the simple things that mattered. So why would Michael leave me a warning like that? The next morning, I called Robert Wilson, my husband's attorney. My voice was shaking when I said, "Robert, I found the note." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Linda, I was hoping we would have this conversation under different circumstances." I sat quietly. "Robert, what did Michael leave behind?" He took a deep breath. "Your husband created a trust many years ago." "A trust?" "Yes." I was confused. Michael and I had always shared everything. At least I thought we did. Robert continued. "He wanted to make sure you would always be protected." "Protected from what?" Another pause. "From having to depend on anyone else." Those words hit me. Because suddenly, I thought about Jason, the papers, the questions, the way he looked at me. Robert continued explaining. Years ago, Michael had made several successful investments. Over time, those investments grew, much larger than I ever imagined. The trust was worth $13 million. I just sat there, silent. I didn't know what to say. Not because of the amount. The money itself didn't change who I was. It was the fact that Michael had spent years quietly protecting my future, while I was busy taking care of everyone else. He was making sure someone would take care of me. "Why didn't he tell me?" I finally asked. Robert smiled slightly. "Because he knew you. He knew you would focus on your family before yourself." That sounded exactly like Michael. I could almost hear his voice. "Linda, you always put everyone else first." Then Robert said something that made me even more emotional. "Your husband also added a condition." "A condition?" "Yes. He wanted you to have complete control over the trust." Not your son. Not anyone else. Only you." I closed my eyes. Because suddenly everything became clear. Michael knew. He knew Jason would eventually have questions. He knew money could change the way people saw each other. And he wanted me to have the ability to make my own decisions. After the call ended, I sat in Michael's office for a long time. I looked at the chair where he used to sit, the desk where he worked, the room where he kept all his plans. And for the first time since losing him, I felt like he was still protecting me. But then another thought entered my mind. Jason didn't know about the trust. He believed I was just a grieving widow. Someone with an old house and no power. Someone he could convince. Someone he could control. I looked at the documents in front of me. The truth was finally in my hands. But I had a choice. I could tell Jason everything immediately. I could confront him. I could ask him why he was trying to take control of my life. Or I could wait. Because there was something I needed to know first. Was my son acting this way because he was confused after losing his father? Or was this who he truly was? I decided not to reveal the trust. Not yet. I wanted to see what Jason would do when he thought I had nothing. Because sometimes, the easiest way to discover someone's true heart is to let them believe you have nothing left to give. The fortune my son never knew about after learning about the 13 million trust, I thought I would feel powerful. I thought I would finally feel safe. But the truth was, I felt heartbroken. Because the money was never the thing that mattered. The painful part was realizing why Michael had created it. He didn't do it because he didn't trust me. He did it because he knew the world could change, and he wanted to make sure I would never have to beg anyone for security. Especially not my own family. For the next few days, I kept the secret to myself. I woke up every morning in the same house where Michael and I had spent our entire marriage, but something felt different. Because now I knew something Jason didn't. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't helpless. And I wasn't someone who needed to be rescued. But I also wanted to understand my son. I wanted to believe there was still a good reason behind his actions. Maybe he was overwhelmed. Maybe grief had changed him. Maybe he was simply making mistakes. A mother always searches for reasons to forgive her child, even when forgiveness becomes painful. Then one afternoon, Jason came to visit again. He walked through the front door without knocking. Something he had done his entire life. Normally, I wouldn't have cared. He was my son. But that day, it felt different. He looked around the house. Not at the family. Photos. Not at the memories. At the rooms. At the walls. At the things that could be sold. Mom, I've been thinking. I looked at him. About what? The future. I already knew where this conversation was going. Jason sat down. You can't stay here forever. I stayed quiet. He continued. This house is too much responsibility. You need something easier. I looked around the room. This was the place where his father held him as a baby. The place where we celebrated birthdays. The place where Christmas mornings happened. And now my son was talking about it like it was just a property listing. Jason, this house is my home, he sighed. Mom, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you, but I noticed something. Every time Jason said he was helping me, he was actually making decisions for me. There was a difference. Why are you so focused on this house? I asked. He looked away. Only for a second. But I noticed, because it's the logical thing to do. Logical. That word again. The word people use when they want to make something emotional sound unnecessary. Later that evening, I received another message from Robert. He reminded me. The trust is completely under your control. You decide what happens next. I stared at that message for a long time, because I finally understood something. Michael hadn't just left me money. He left me freedom. Freedom to say no. Freedom to protect myself. Freedom to see people clearly. The next day, I overheard another conversation. Jason was outside on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen, but his voice carried through the open window. I know, but once everything is settled, it will be worth it. A pause. No, she doesn't know about anything. My heart stopped. She doesn't know about anything. I stood frozen, because I suddenly realized Jason wasn't just thinking about helping me. He was making plans that involved my home, my future, and possibly my husband's final wishes. That night, I opened Michael's trust documents again. I looked at the numbers. $13,000, a fortune my son never knew existed. For years, I had protected Jason. I defended him. I believed in him. But now I had to ask myself the hardest question a mother can ask. If Jason thought I had nothing, would he still treat me like his mother? I already knew I was about to find out. I let my son believe he had won for the first time in my life. I stopped trying to fix everything. That was a strange feeling for me. Because as a mother, I had spent decades solving problems before anyone even knew they existed. When Jason was sick as a child, I stayed awake all night. When he struggled in school, I found ways to help him. When he faced difficulties as an adult, I stepped in without hesitation. That was what mothers did. At least, that was what I believed. But after Michael died, I started seeing something I had ignored for years. I had spent my entire life protecting Jason from consequences, and maybe, without realizing it, I had prevented him from becoming the person he needed to be. So I made a decision. I would not reveal the trust. I would not tell him about the $13 million. I would not tell him that I had more power than he could ever imagine. I wanted to see the truth, not the version of Jason who thought I could help him. The real version. A few days later, Jason came to the house again. This time, he seemed more confident. Almost too confident. He walked into the living room and looked around. "Mom, I think I've found a solution." I looked at him. "A solution to what?" "The house." There it was again. The house. Not my grief. Not my future. Not how I was surviving without my husband. Just the house. Jason sat down across from me. "You need to think about what's practical." I stayed silent. He continued. "You could move into a smaller place. We could handle everything. Here, we could make sure the property is taken care of." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I finally understood. He wasn't asking. He was presenting me with a decision he had already made. "Jason, what does we could handle everything mean?" He paused. "Mom, don't make this difficult." Those words, I had heard them before. Every time someone wants control, they say the same thing. Don't make this difficult. Don't ask questions. Just agree. I looked at my son, the little boy who once held my hand crossing the street, the teenager who hugged me after losing his first baseball game, the young man whose future I worried about every single day, and I wondered, when did he start seeing me as something to manage? "Jason, if I didn't have this house," I asked quietly, "if I had nothing to give you, would you still be here?" The room became silent. For a moment, I saw something in his face, a flash of discomfort, like the question touched something he didn't want to admit. Then he looked away. "Mom, that's not fair." Maybe it wasn't, but it was necessary, because I needed an honest answer. That night, I made another decision. I would stop making things easy for him. Not because I hated my son, not because I wanted revenge, but because love without boundaries can destroy both people. I quietly contacted my financial advisor. I changed access to my accounts. I updated my personal records. And most importantly, I made sure no one could make decisions for me without my permission. The next morning, Jason called. His voice sounded different, confused. "Mom, did something happen with the accounts?" I smiled, so he noticed. "I don't know what you're talking about." A pause. "Mom, things are different." I looked out the window at the backyard where Michael and I spent so many years. "Yes, Jason, they are..." He became quiet. Because, for the first time, he realized something had changed. The mother who always said yes had finally learned how to say no. And he still had no idea that the woman he underestimated was the same woman holding the key to his future. The lawyer revealed the truth for weeks. I watched my son believe he was in control. And that was the hardest. But not because I wanted to punish him. Not because I wanted to see him struggle. But because I was watching someone I loved slowly reveal a side of himself I never wanted to. "See?" Jason stopped pretending. The kindness he showed after his father's funeral disappeared, the gentle voice, the concerned questions, the offers to help, they were replaced by impatience. One morning, he arrived at the house without warning. He walked straight into the kitchen. "Mom, we need to finish this today." I looked up from my coffee. "Finish what?" He placed a folder on the table. "The paperwork. I already knew. The house. Again. Jason, I've told you. I'm not making any decisions right now." His expression changed. "Mom, you've had enough time. Enough time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband had been gone only a short time. I was still learning how to wake up every morning without him. And my son was telling me I had taken too long to decide what happened to my home. "Jason," I said quietly, "do you even understand what this house means to me?" He looked around, then shrugged. "It's just a house." "Mom." Those words hurt more than I expected. Because to him, it was a property. To me, it was 42 years of memories. The moment I refused to sign the documents, Jason lost his patience. His voice became colder. "You need to be realistic." I stared at him. "Realistic?" "Yes, you're alone now. You can't keep living like nothing has changed." I felt my heart sink because I finally understood. Jason wasn't afraid I couldn't take care of myself. He was frustrated because I wouldn't let him take control. Then he said the words I would never forget. "Mom, you need to accept that this isn't your decision anymore." I looked at him, my own son, standing in the home where I raised him, telling me I no longer had a choice. But Jason didn't know something. He didn't know that every decision in that house still belonged to me. He didn't know about Michael's trust. He didn't know about the $13 million, and he definitely didn't know that his father had prepared for this exact moment. I reached for my phone. "Jason, before we continue this conversation, I think there's someone you should hear from." His eyebrows tightened. "Who?" I pressed the call button. A few seconds later, Robert Wilson walked through the front door. Jason immediately recognized him. "Dad's lawyer?" Robert nodded. "Yes, Jason. I believe it's time we discuss your father's final arrangements." Jason looked confused. "What does that have to do with the house?" Robert placed a folder on the table. "Everything." The room became silent. Robert opened the documents. "Michael Carter created a protected trust several years ago." Jason frowned. "A trust?" "Yes. And the beneficiary?" Robert looked at me. "Your mother." Jason froze. "Then Robert continued, "The trust currently holds assets valued at approximately $13 million. Silence. Complete silence. Jason stared at me. He was seeing me for the first time. "Mom," his voice changed. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him calmly, because that was the question I had been waiting for. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Do you need help?" Not, "Why did Dad do this?" The first thing he asked was why he didn't know about the money, and in that moment, I finally had my answer. I took a deep breath. "Because, Jason, I needed to know if you loved me when you thought I had nothing." My son finally saw who I really was. The silence after Robert revealed the trust felt heavier than anything I had ever experienced. Jason just stood there. The confidence he walked in with was gone. The certainty, the control, the belief that he already knew how everything would, and all of it disappeared in a matter of seconds. He looked at the documents on the table. Then he looked at me. $13 million. He whispered the number like he couldn't believe it, but I noticed something. He wasn't asking if the money was real. He wasn't asking how I was feeling. He wasn't asking why his father kept this secret to protect me. He was trying to understand what it meant for him, and that hurt more than I wanted to admit. "Mom," Jason finally said. I had no idea. I nodded. I know. He looked confused. What does that mean? I looked at him. It means you never tried to find out. Those words were harder to say than I expected, because no mother wants to admit that her child stopped seeing her. Jason sat down. For the first time in weeks, he looked less like someone trying to win, and more like someone who realized he had lost something important. I thought you needed help. I stayed quiet. Jason, helping someone means asking what they need. It doesn't mean deciding their future for them. He looked down. The room became quiet. Then Robert explained something else. Your father was very clear about one thing. Jason looked up. What? Linda has complete control over this trust. She can decide how it is used. She can decide who benefits from it. Jason's face changed, because suddenly he understood this was never about the house. It was never about helping me. It was about access. For years, Jason had assumed he knew my situation. He thought I was vulnerable. He thought I had nowhere else to turn. He thought he was the person with power. But he had been wrong. The power was never in the money. The power was in the that I had a choice, and for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself. Later that evening, Jason stayed behind after Robert left. He sat in the living room, the same room where he used to build toy houses on the floor as a child. I feel terrible. Mom, I believed he meant it. At least, I wanted to. I never thought you would see me that way. I looked at him. Jason, that's the problem. You never thought about how I saw you. He became emotional. I was stressed. I was scared. I just thought I was doing what was best. I nodded slowly. Maybe you did, but doing what you think is best doesn't give you the right to take away someone else's choices. Jason wiped his eyes. For years, I had protected him from pain. I had fixed his mistakes. I had made life easier for him. But maybe the greatest kindness I could give him now was allowing him to face the consequences of his own decisions. Before he left, Jason stopped at the door. Mom. I looked at him. I'm sorry. 2 simple words. Words I had waited a long time to hear. But I knew something. An apology could open a door, but it couldn't erase what happened. Trust was not rebuilt in one conversation. It was rebuilt through actions. After he left, I walked through the house. I touched the walls. I looked at the family photos. And for the first time since Michael passed away, I didn't feel afraid. I finally understood something. My husband didn't leave me a fortune because he thought I was weak. He left it because he knew one day I might need the strength to stand on my own. The cost of losing a mother's trust after that day, everything changed. Not because Jason suddenly became a different person. People don't change overnight. But for the first time, he stopped assuming he knew what was best for me. And for the first time, I stopped pretending his actions didn't hurt me. For many years, I had protected Jason from every difficult moment. When he struggled financially, I helped. When he made mistakes, I defended him. When life became difficult, I was always the person he could call. I never kept track of what I gave him. A mother's love is not supposed to be a transaction. But somewhere along the way, Jason started believing my love meant unlimited access, unlimited forgiveness, unlimited sacrifice, and I had to teach him something I should have taught him years earlier. Love needs boundaries. A few weeks after the truth about the trust was revealed, Jason came back to see me. This time, he didn't bring paperwork. He didn't bring plans. He didn't bring a list of reasons why I should change my life. He simply knocked on the door. When I opened it, he stood there holding flowers. Mom? I looked at him. Can we talk? I let him in. We sat. At the same kitchen table where everything had started. The same table where he once placed documents in front of me. The same place where I realized my son was no longer seeing me as his mother. "I'm sorry," he said it again. But this time, he didn't say it because he had lost access to the trust. He said it because he finally understood what he had done. I was wrong. I thought about the house. I thought about money. I thought about what I wanted. He looked down, but I never stopped to think about what you were going through after Dad died. That was the first honest thing he had said in a long time. I took a deep breath. "Jason, do you know what hurt me the most?" He looked up. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the money. It was realizing that my own son only saw my value after he discovered what I had. His eyes filled with regret, because he knew there was truth in my words. For a long time, Jason had measured people by what they could provide, and he had forgotten the person who had provided for him his entire life. Over the next few months, I watched him slowly change, not through promises, through actions. He started checking on me. Not about the trust, not about the house and about me, nor he asked how I was sleeping. He asked if I needed anything. He started visiting because he wanted to spend time with his mother, not because he expected something. That difference meant everything. I never used the $13 million to punish him. I never wanted revenge. And the greatest lesson was not making him suffer. It was letting him understand what he almost lost. A mother can forgive many things, but being forgotten by your own child leaves a wound that takes time to heal. One evening, Jason and I sat on the porch, the same porch where Michael and I spent countless nights together. He looked around. "I understand now why Dad loved this place so much." Smiled. "It was never just the house." He nodded. "I know." And maybe that was the moment. I knew he finally understood. The house was never the prize. The money was never the prize. The real loss was almost losing the person who loved him before anyone else did. The house was never the prize. A year after Michael passed away, I stood in the backyard of the home we built together. The same backyard where we watched Jason grow up. The same place where Michael planted flowers because he knew I loved them. The same place where I once believed my family would always stay. Connected. Life looked different now. The house was quieter. My days were slower, but for the first time in a long time, my heart felt peaceful after everything that happened. Learned something important. People often think power comes from money, from owning things, from having control over others. But they are wrong. True. Power comes from knowing your own worth. For years, I measured my value by what I could do for my family. I was the mother who helped, the wife who sacrificed, the person everyone depended on. And I loved being that person, but I forgot something. I mattered too. My husband understood that before I did. Michael didn't leave me the $13 million because he wanted me to become wealthy. He left it because he wanted me to be free from fear, free from depending on someone who might not value me, free to choose my own future. Months later, Jason asked me a question I never expected. "Mom, do you think you can ever trust me again?" I looked at him. The old Jason would have wanted a quick answer. A simple forgiveness. But trust doesn't work that way. "Jason, trust isn't something you ask for. It's something you rebuild." Nodded, and for the first time, he understood. Some lessons don't come from anger. They come from losing something you should have protected. Today, Jason and I have a different relationship. Not perfect, but honest. He no longer sees me as someone who needs to be managed. He sees me as his mother, a person Someone with feelings. Someone with dreams. Someone who deserves respect. Sometimes I still walk through the rooms of this house and think about Michael. I think about the life we created, the challenges we survived, the love we shared, and I smile because he knew something I didn't. He knew that one day I would need to stand up for myself. The greatest gift Michael gave me was never the trust. It was the confidence to say, I am still here. I am still worthy. I am still important. And I will never again allow anyone, even someone I love, to make me feel like I have nothing. Because the truth is, I never needed $13 million to prove my value. I had value long before anyone knew what I owned. The house was never the prize. The money was never the prize. The real treasure was finding myself again.